In the stark, fluorescent-lit corridors of a Manhattan federal courthouse, where the weight of fame collides unforgivingly with the machinery of justice, Sean Diddy Combs faced the precipice of his unraveling empire. The music mogul, once the undisputed architect of hip-hop's glittering bad boy dynasty, stepped into the fray of his sentencing hearing not as the untouchable icon of club anthems and champagne toasts, but as a man shackled by the consequences of his excesses. Convicted earlier that year on 2 counts of prostitution-related charges, a dramatic fall from the rarefied air of superstardom, Combs now teetered on the edge of a potential 2-decade prison term. The prosecution, armed with a dossier of damning evidence and unyielding in their pursuit of proportionality, demanded no less than 11 years behind bars, a sentence that would etch a permanent scar on the legacy he built from Bronx block parties to global boardrooms. Yet, in a counterpoint of calculated defiance, his defense team mounted a fervent plea for leniency, capping their ask at a mere 14 months, a gulf in perspectives that underscored the chasm between culpability and contrition in the high-stakes theater of American jurisprudence. As dawn broke over the urban sprawl, casting long shadows on the courthouse steps, the air hummed with a palpable tension that transcended the morning chill. Combs arrived not in the armored SUVs of yesteryear, flanked by entourages of stylists and hype men, but in a more subdued procession, his attire a deliberate nod to humility, an oatmeal-colored sweater that draped loosely over his frame, paired with dark pants that spoke of restraint rather than flash. It was a far cry from the velour tracksuits and diamond-encrusted medallions that once defined his persona, symbols of a life where excess was not just encouraged but engineered. Emerging from the vehicle, he paused, his gaze sweeping the assembled crowd before lifting in a gesture both intimate and performative, a wave to his family, clustered like sentinels in the courtroom's antechamber. There stood Janice Combs, his mother, her face a map of quiet endurance, etched with the lines of a woman who had witnessed her son's ascent from Harlem hustler to hip-hop hegemon, and now this precipitous descent. Beside her, 6 of his 7 children formed a poignant phalanx, the elder ones hardened by the media maelstrom that had engulfed their surname, and the younger, still shielded from the full brunt of their father's infamy. Notably absent was his 2-year-old daughter, Love, a tender omission that spared the toddler the spectacle but amplified the emotional stakes for those present. Half an hour prior to the gavel's anticipated fall, Combs' legal vanguard materialized with the precision of a well-rehearsed symphony. Mark Agnifilo, the seasoned litigator whose baritone had echoed through countless celebrity skirmishes, strode in with an air of unflappable resolve, his briefcase a repository of motions and memoranda aimed at humanizing his client. Flanking him was Nicole Westmoreland, a rising force in the defense of the accused elite, her sharp intellect a counterweight to the prosecution's prosecutorial zeal. Their arrival was no mere formality, it was a declaration of battle lines drawn, strategies honed in late-night war rooms where every precedent, every plea for mercy, was dissected like a lyric in one of Combs' seminal tracks. Outside, the courthouse perimeter had transformed into a makeshift vigil. Supporters, a motley assembly of die-hard fans, music industry veterans and curious bystanders, having encamped since the previous eve. Tents dotted the plaza, emblazoned with faded album art and handwritten placards pleading "Free Diddy," or invoking biblical verses on redemption. Their presence was a microcosm of Combs' polarizing legacy. To some, a visionary who bottled black excellence and shipped it worldwide. To others, a cautionary tale of unchecked power's corrosive toll. Inside the hallowed chambers, as the clock ticked toward the hearing's commencement, Combs navigated the ritual of reunion with a tenderness that belied the gravity at hand. He approached his family cluster, leaning in to plant a kiss on Janice's cheek, a moment captured in fleeting stillness amid the shuffle of clerks and bailiffs. The gesture, simple yet seismic, evoked the man behind the mogul, a father, a son, grappling with the unraveling of his carefully curated narrative. Seated at the defense table, he pored over legal documents, his brow furrowed in concentration, annotations scribbled in the margins like revisions to a track that had gone awry. The charges themselves, rooted in a web of exploitation and coercion, painted a portrait far removed from the party kingpin image. Allegations of orchestrating scenarios where vulnerability was commodified, relationships twisted into transactions. The prosecution's 11-year bid wasn't arbitrary, it was calibrated to reflect the breadth of harm, drawing on victim testimonies that peeled back the glamour to reveal a pattern of predation masked as mentorship. Combs' journey to this juncture had been a meteoric arc bent toward implosion. From discovering Biggie Smalls in a smoky talent showcase to helming hits that soundtracked a generation, M.O. Money M.O. Problems, I'll Be Missing You, he had alchemized street savvy into stratospheric success. Bad Boy Records wasn't just a label, it was an empire spawning clothing lines, vodka ventures, and a network of influence that spanned continents. Yet, beneath the veneer of victory laps and VMA montages, fissures formed. Lawsuits alleging assault, whispers of freak-off parties shrouded in NDAs, and a 2016 hotel surveillance video that immortalized a brutal encounter with ex-partner Cassie Ventura, igniting the dominoes of his downfall. The May conviction on prostitution counts, transporting individuals across state lines for illicit purposes, was the legal linchpin, a verdict that stripped away the Teflon coating and exposed the man to the merciless glare of accountability. Acquittals on graver racketeering and trafficking indictments in July offered a sliver of reprieve, but the sentencing loomed as the true verdict on his character. The family's courtroom tableau was a study in stoic solidarity. Janice, a former teacher and model who had shepherded her only son through the perils of public housing to private jets, sat ramrod straight, her hands clasped in a prayer-like grip that betrayed the turmoil within. She had been his first cheerleader, modeling in the 70s to fund his early demos, only to watch as her nurturing gave way to notoriety's nightmares. The children, from Justin, the aspiring entrepreneur navigating his own spotlight shadows, to the twins Delilah and Jesse, whose twinship mirrored their shared silence, embodied the collateral of celebrity. Their presence wasn't mere optics, it was a humanizing gambit, a reminder to the bench that Combs' fate rippled beyond bars to bedrooms and birthdays missed. Love's absence, orchestrated to preserve innocence, underscored the protective instincts that now warred with paternal peril. As lawyers conferred in hushed tones, sketching final arguments that balanced remorse with resilience, the prosecution's posture remained unyielding. Their 11-year demand was buttressed by psychological profiles painting Combs as a perpetrator of profound power imbalances, victims ensnared in a web of charisma and control.